Hi everyone. I'm gonna share with you the single most challenging, emotional day of my entire life to this point, age 53. My son Graham called me, and I could tell in his voice that there was trouble. He had gone to feed the horses, and I thought, uh-oh, And he said, I don't want to tell you over the phone. And I said, are you okay? Are you okay? Because first I thought, oh gosh, what could have happened to him while he was feeding? I hope he's all right. He said, I'm fine. I said, you have to tell me, Graham, just tell me. And he said, Ben hung himself behind the barn. And I just fell to the floor. I couldn't even stand up. And I was shaking, and I said, Graham, I'm coming. I'll be right there. And I got myself off the floor, and I ran down the steps, and I got out the front door, and I collapsed again. I just couldn't move. I was just laying on the concrete, and my friend Stephanie came over, and she was like, what's wrong? It was obvious. And I was just wailing, and I couldn't even tell her. And I said, I have to get to Graham. And she said, let me drive you. She put me in the car with her, and I just couldn't believe the idea that I would never see my son again. And so I'm riding. It's just a 2-minute drive. It's not far. But I'm riding with her, and I'm saying, I can't see it, Stephanie Ann. I can't see it. She said, you don't have to see it. And I said, I just can't. And I just wanted to get to Graham because he found him that way. And I just wanted to hug him. So Graham ran to me when I got out of the car. We were just halfway up the driveway, and he and I were just hugging one another and crying and hugging and crying and crying and hugging. And he said, I don't know why he did this, Mom. And right then, the people who were helping us, our lovely neighbors, they called out from the woods, and they said, he's breathing. So Graham and I ran into the woods, and there he was lying there breathing. He had snot coming out of his nose, and he was taking these labored breaths. I was so delighted that he was alive. And then Raymond showed up. There were about 3 guys there helping around, neighbors, and we were all there. He was laying in the ground, and there were pricklers around, and we kept pulling them away from his body, and we were just sitting there. They had called emergency services, and we were just lying there with him, sitting there, just in shock. And it seemed like it took forever. It seemed so long, but he was breathing, so there was hope. And we just hovered around him for a long time, and then when the paramedics got there, they said some things. They were like, it's good, this is good, that's good. He has heartbeat, all these things, and they were trying to be hopeful. So then they put him on the stretcher, and they're keeping his neck clear with a thing so it would stay still. And then I said, can I ride with him? And they said no. So they took my boy away in the ambulance, and we started driving to the nearest hospital, and they called and said, you'll need to go to Greenville. He's being flown in a helicopter to Greenville. So we turned our car around towards Greenville, and we were all just silent, really. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We have an hour and a half drive. We don't know if he's going to live. He's going to have like some injuries. But we just didn't know. So in the car, we were like, I went through so many emotions. I was like trying to be hopeful at some point and making scenarios that would be so wonderful. And Graham was so upset. He threw up out the side of the car. And then later we had to stop and let him get out and throw up again. And we gave him some water. He hadn't eaten or had any water or anything. So I think it's just the worst feeling ever. Just the whole nebulousness of all of it was so bad. It was almost worse because you just didn't know. We were trying to be hopeful, and Raymond was driving crazy, and that's my ex-husband, and I kept asking him to slow down, please. We're going to get there in one piece so we can see what's going on. We finally got there, and they brought us in to see him, and he had been intubated, so he had this tube all down in his mouth, and he looked so terrible. And so we just stood there, and they said, you know, this is breathing for him. He's getting more oxygen. This is better, and we don't know anything yet. That's all they could say. We just don't know anything. So we sort of stood around a lot and just looked at him. And finally, Graham and Raymond went and got something, a drink or something, to go down the hallway. And I just couldn't leave. Anyway, they finally came over and talked to us and said that they were going to bring him into the ICU now and out of the emergency room. It was so chaotic. The emergency room was so, I mean, you can imagine, it's an emergency room. Everybody's in like their beginning stages of the worst. And it was so loud and so confusing just to be in there. And so it was kind of nice to get up to see him in the ICU. But there he was in this big room with the bed there. And he had all these things plugged into his arm, and there were machines all around him. And I just touched his forehead. I mean, he wasn't really conscious at all. And I just wanted to touch him and hold his hand. And at some point you realize, you know, this is where we are. We don't know. And so it goes on for a long time, and I just didn't want to take my hands off of him. I just kept my hand on him somewhere, on his hand or on his shoulder, or on his forehead, or his tassel. His hair was all matted. And then they said that only one person could stay, and so I definitely was like, I'm staying. So I spent the night in the chair next to him, holding his hand and just being in prayer and saying sweet, loving things, even though I knew he wasn't fully there. I knew he could hear me. And I just stayed up all night. It was very loud. There's machines beeping and stuff, and there's no privacy. And he was just there. This machine breathing for him. And they were giving him all these medicines, and no one really tells you anything except, don't worry, you know, we're monitoring him 100% out the door. Don't worry if things beep or whatever, we're watching him. You don't have to come get us. And everybody's doing their jobs, you know, the nurses, and they're lovely people. All of them are doing the very best that they can, but it's so scary and uncomfortable being in there. But at least he was alive. So I'm just sharing this with you all. I'm going to share each day because I think it's important to start a dialogue with lots of people who might be going through this. And just to share with one another how it goes emotionally. Like, you find this place within you, like as a mother anyway, where it was almost like I just had to be present, fully present the whole time. Just, what can I say to him right this moment, that would be so helpful, and let him know that I love him just so much. And it's just surreal. I mean, you stop and you think, this cannot be happening. And then it's right there in your face. And poor Graham, I know he's going to be having this vision of his brother hanging in a tree for the rest of his life. And you know what he said to me? He said, Mom, if he's okay, I'll be fine with that vision. But if he dies, then it will be the worst one ever. So sweet boy. Anyway. All right. So I'm letting it out. Again, I've been kind of up and down crying a lot. This is, I believe, day 25 since Ben tried to take his life. And we've been at the hospital a lot. And now he's in the psych ward, and we're not really able to see him anymore. So I thought I would start this just to help myself, help others make sense of something that is still very confusing to me. Why, he would do this. Anyway, I'll continue on and share more with you all. If this resonates with you, please join me for day 2 of the recanting of the experience. Or if you know somebody who might, want to reach out and have conversation, feel free to do that. I'm putting all this together right now, but I think I'm going to do maybe like a spaces room or a chat room, so that we can all come together and talk about all this stuff towards the end when I finish the days. I have it all written down on this poster board. I'm trying to remember and chronicle what happened. Anyway, Ben's alive, and that's the best news in the world. So he's still with us. Unbelievable. It's a miracle. And I'm wishing all of you miracles, and I hope that everybody out there is doing the very best that they can. And I know we just had all these floods and everything, but this took it to a new level. Everybody's going through tough stuff. And my heart is with all of you as well as with myself. And with God, help me get through all of this. All the wonderful friends, thank you so much. I'll speak to you tomorrow.